Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland! This is for you!
Cavs fans, how are we doing? What a night. What a night indeed. Welcome to the Block the Shot to Stop, our Blue Wire Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. I am Tim Daniel. I am joined by the crew, all three of us here tonight. We had to have all three of us for a big one like this. Skylar Webker, Kevin Lynch. The game of the year, not just for the Cavaliers so far this season. This was the game of the year for the NBA regular season so far. This was absolutely unbelievable. A 129-122 victory over the Oklahoma City Thunder in a game that score is pretty close. It does not tell the story how close that game was in general. So we're going to break all that down. But before we get into the, what we normally do, guys, where we kind of go through what happened in the game, this is now how this player played, how this player played. Can we just take a moment and just acknowledge how awesome of a basketball game that was between two incredibly good basketball teams?
I mean, I said it in our chat. That was a finals game. Like that felt like a finals game.
One of my favorite parts of the whole game was to start the fourth quarter, Kenny Atkins's interview that I said, I texted you guys about. Like he's literally just saying, "What an awesome game! This is so much fun. Like crowd's awesome, everybody's playing awesome, everybody's playing the right way. Like this is just really fun." Like he seemed more like a fan than anything else. But no, it was unbelievable game. One of the better regular season basketball games I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, for sure. So Kevin,
guys, sorry to go off of what Kevin said. Like I haven't heard or seen or even heard of anybody kind of having that kind of attitude, honestly, since Pete Rose in the World Series, when he's like, "Isn't this fun? Isn't this great?" As like that kind of like go lucky, like we're here to play basketball attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, I wanted to make sure I said this to you first because I know you feel the way I do about this scenario. I felt like I was back in 2016. I felt like I was scared again. Like every time Shea put a shot up, I felt like it was like we did when Steph Curry during those finals runs against Steph Curry, where it's like you just knew it was going in. They didn't always go in, but when the shot went in the air, you're like, "Oh yeah, that's going in," because he is just unbelievable. There's a reason he's the leading candidate for MVP right now.
Well, I hate to go against you there, Tim, but they actually held him under. He hit his under tonight, 31.5, because I had it. And so the Cavs kind of locked him up to keep him to 31. He's incredible. He's such a great basketball player and almost like an anomaly, like a little bit of an old school player, like kind of how Kobe played and stuff like that. Like he plays a lot in the mid range, is great at getting to the free throw line and he does foul bait at some, but he's very good at just actually drawing contact and drawing real fouls. Is a decent 3-point shooter, but doesn't get most of his points from there. Like he's so good. The Cavs threw everything at him. They had, at my count, they had probably 5 or 6 different guys on him, and then threw quite a bit of zone on OKC in the fourth quarter as well, just to mix it up. And he worked really hard, but he still got 31 points.
Dude, he's just like his ability to make plays, his ability to pass, his ability to do everything he does. And I know he's not the defender he was when he came in from the Clippers trade, which, by the way, that looks bad all the time. That's never going to look good.
Why? Let me get. I feel like Minnesota gets so much flack for the Rudy Gobert trade, and I'm not a huge Rudy Gobert fan, but they won that trade in a landslide compared to what the Clippers ended up with. So I don't know. I just think it's funny revisionist history that I feel like Minnesota's gotten so much flack, and I certainly think they gave up too much from Rudy Gobert, but like that Shea trade where Paul George went the other way and everything else went to the Clippers, like it's one of the most landslide trades in a long time.
Yeah, and the Thunder are still reaping the benefits from that trade. So
they still have a war chest of assets.
Yeah. And they didn't have Alex Caruso tonight. He's still been out for a little while, and they still were really good. Skylar, I know we're going to break down the Cavs players like we normally do, but I want to make sure we give respect and credit to the opponent because they are a great team. I'm so excited that we get to do this again next Thursday with these guys at their home. But Lou Dort tonight, another guy who I'm a huge fan of. I really, really love his game. I love Jalen Williams too. But Lou Dort really finding a way to make that game so difficult for Donovan Mitchell, which in one way I'm complimenting Lou Dort, but I'm also complimenting the rest of the Cavs. And yeah, he made that game extremely difficult for Donovan Mitchell, and the Cavs still found a way.
Yeah, Lou Dort was all over the floor tonight. But the person that I really want to highlight is Wallace. Wallace was, he
was great.
Missed 2 shots. He was perfect from distance. He was actually one of the 2 players on OKC that finished the game with a positive plus-minus. He was all over the floor and a menace on defense. And as far as Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, that guy, his mid-range game is lethal. And as Kevin mentioned, he's really good at foul baiting, but also drawing genuine fouls. The Cavs knew that because he only got to the line twice.
Yeah, they were doing such a good job of when he pushed himself to get space. They gave him the space he needed to get his shot off and still found a way to make things difficult for him. And I think that is hats off to the defensive staff for putting that together and figuring out that game plan. Because that was great. You mentioned Cason Wallace. When Cason Wallace got out of Kentucky, I thought he'd be a pretty good rotation guard. And tonight was probably the best game of his career so far. And that's not an insult by any means. That kid's got a lot of really good potential. He's in the great spot for him. I think Mark Daigneault really has an argument for the best coach in the league. He's just does such a great job with that young team. They were on a 15-game win streak going into tonight. So I just want to make sure we started the show giving them the credit where credit's due. So we're not just like, haha, Cleveland, go away, OKC. Because they certainly deserve all the flowers tonight for how well they played too.
Well, okay, you did it. Can we talk about the Cavs now?
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about why people are here. All right, let's do it, guys. I went back to the original segments of the block, the shot, the stop. I took notes again tonight. I had a lot to say because I was nervous. Like I said, I felt like I was back in the finals runs where every time OKC had a possession and they got in the half court, I was scared. And then every time Cleveland, I felt like Cleveland was doing worse than they were in the moment because I'm a fan and I'm emotionally attached. But realistically, you look at it and you're like, okay, they're not really playing that bad. The first quarter, I felt like they missed a lot. And they really didn't. So it was pretty clean quarter both sides. I really thought Mobley drew that foul on Mobley that was very questionable. And I thought that could be something that could kind of make the game go a different way. And I feel like OKC really got whatever they wanted in the first quarter. And so you kind of saw a lot of that. And Cleveland did struggle. Obviously, Mitchell didn't hit a shot in the first quarter. Garland was out for a decent amount of time. But it was it was a big back and forth. It was the beginning of the heavyweight bout where, if we want to go boxing terms, this was really just 2 dudes just full on duking it out. Best man wins. In the first quarter, Kevin really kind of set the perfect example for that.
Yeah, the first quarter, I don't know, the whole game. The first quarter definitely set the example of kind of, I would say light sparring to kind of gauge each other. And then as soon as the second quarter hit, I feel like that's when the punches really started to blow, for staying on this boxing reference. As far as the point I want to make is that we still won this game. And nobody played over 35 minutes.
Beautiful.
That's incredible. Incredible. And I think a lot of that comes from, and I'll let Kevin take it over here. I think a lot of that comes from our guy, TJ Maxx, and Max Strus coming off the bench tonight.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, Skylar. If we're talking about biggest things that stick out, a different one for me was how many teams in the league could have their leading scorer go 3 for 16 from the field at 11 points and beat one of the top 2 teams in the NBA?
Yeah.
And that's what the Cavs did tonight. Donovan Mitchell, 3 of 16 from the field, 11 points overall, did hit a big 3 late in the fourth quarter when the game was really tight. But he struggled tonight. OKC has the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, and second place isn't that close.
Right.
So it's not, totally unexpected that he would struggle. Probably wouldn't expect him to struggle as much as he did. But I say that all to give the Cavs team everybody credit, including Donovan Mitchell, because he could have forced it even more. He could have took himself out of the game mentally and everything. But they just had guy after guy step up, and the guy. Now that we're finally talking about the Cavs, I mean, I really want to start. We have to start with Jarrett Allen.
Absolutely,
Jared, like we said, Skylar and I, when we did a podcast Sunday night, we were kind of breaking it down like this season. If you're writing a book, like we did the first 3 chapters, chapter 1, 15-0, chapter 2, they went 6-4. And that was a stretch that Jarrett Allen really struggled. His numbers dipped quite a bit in that stretch. And now they're on an 11-game winning streak. And I kind of said tonight would start chapter 4. And Jarrett has been so good pretty much the whole month of December and now into January, to where he almost and him, maybe as much as anybody on his team, gets up for big matchups, like nationally televised games, playing, the Lakers and LeBron.
Right.
He was the best player in that game. When they played against Jokic, he played Jokic to a stalemate, who's the best player in the league. And I thought he was incredible. Obviously his numbers, but his effort tonight on the defensive end, protecting the rim against a team that just comes at you in waves trying to get to the rim. And then his effort on the boards, especially in the offensive glass. I mean, how many possessions did he give them a second shot for, by getting an offensive rebound, by tipping the ball out? Like, I just thought he was phenomenal tonight.
To go off of your key there, he had more offensive rebounds than he had defensive rebounds.
Yeah, and offensive rebounds is, I mean, all of rebounding exists, but especially offensive rebounding, it's positioning and effort, right?
Yep,
because
for sure.
He's really smart about, having a good idea where the ball could carry him to on missed shots. If it's a long shot from the right corner, he gets on the left side of the block, things like that. But then he just gives incredible effort, to get those rebounds. And he always does, but tonight stood out especially.
I think there's a lot to say about that too, with the sense that he's plays for the Cavs, because they're such a good shooting team that he has a tendency to kind of make those extra possessions happen. Is something that's really awesome. So yeah, you guys mentioned it. I mean, everything he did tonight. I've talked a lot.
Before we move off, just think about how many rebounds he would have, because obviously when the ball comes to him and he gets fouled, when Shea fouls him, or when Hartenstein would foul him, those don't get counted as rebounds. So, like the 11 or 12 rebounds realistically is like 16.
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk about Mobley too, who was also fantastic tonight. And as kind of a lead in into that, when Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley were on the floor together tonight, the Cavs were plus 19 in a 7-point game. And Hartenstein was awesome, but there was only one of him, and there was 2 Cavs going against that. I was super impressed by Isaiah Hartenstein. I always liked him, but I thought he was absolutely great tonight. But again,
former Cav,
yeah, there was one of him and 2 of our guys that were just relentless, getting to the rim on the boards, protecting the paint, and those 2 together is example number 1 of why the Cavs can honestly win a championship, because they have something no one else in the league has, and that's like 2 all-star big men that can play together and complement the whole team.
How do you defend that high-low that those 2 run? Because it's like they can bounce past you, they can find an open guy, they can oop each other. They both threw each other an alley-oop tonight. It's so hard to figure out how to put a defensive game plan against those 2 guys, because I mean, Doris Burke said it tonight during the broadcast. She's like, Jarrett Allen's not the most overpowering offensive talent, but what he does well, he does so well.
Yeah.
And like with, they're like in transition, and Mobley and him are hitting each other for baskets. It's like, I don't know. I mean, like you said, there's one Hartenstein, there's one Jokic, there's like, one, Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah.
There's one Porzingis.
To answer your question, the absolute best thing you can do to stop the high-low Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen game is to go into a zone. The problem with going into a zone is the Cavs are the best 3-point shooting team in the league. So it's a pick your poison. Absolutely. And when I talk about complementary basketball, this is like as good of, roster up and down the roster, obviously with the star players, but even the bench complementing one another of a team that I've followed in a long time. Most NBA teams are really heavy on stars and have a few good role players, but the fact that like the basketball is so complimentary is just, it makes them so fun to watch and so hard to stop.
Side note about the broadcast tonight. It was great that this game was on ESPN. I'm so happy Richard Jefferson got to do the game.
Yeah.
it was great that he was the color guy tonight, with Doris, of course, who is also phenomenal at her job and the best in the biz. And Mike Breen here. I mean, just awesome. And like, look, all the losers out there that want to talk about ratings, watch tonight. The league's fine.
Yeah.
The league's fine. Don't bring us this BS about ratings anymore, because we want to hear it. All right, back to the game.
Well, it is, and I actually want to give the NBA a shot, because a lot of Cleveland fans, and it's fair, say, why aren't the Cavs getting covered more? They're the best record in the league. You know, why do, when I turn on NBA TV or ESPN, are they talking about the Lakers or the Warriors and stuff? To the NBA's credit, they did move this game to ESPN. They did put their number one broadcast team on it, and they did the last 24 hours or so really promote the game. And I thought, and I thought that was. Thought it was smart on their part, and also like hopefully Cavs Nation can take a little bit of a breath. That the big networks and the NBA realize that this is a marquee game and the two marquee teams, and treated it as such.
Yeah, Scott and I were talking before we went on air. They're on national TV twice next week.
Yeah.
I think we'll all feel better when the national media start talking that the Cavs are championship team. And that's one thing that I pointed out as my fourth chapter in this season is you beat OKC, and there's no debate on who the best team in the league is. You have beaten Boston. You have beaten OKC. You've beaten the brakes off of LA. You've beaten the brakes off of Denver. You've beaten the brakes off the Warriors. You've beaten the brakes off of the Knicks. You've beaten the brakes off of the Mavericks. There's nothing left.
You beat Orlando. You beat team. Yeah, I 1,000% agree with you, Skyler. I 1,000% agree. Let's get to Mobley for a little bit here. There's so many guys we got to highlight in this game. We got to spend a lot of time talking about the bench tonight because they were great. But Mobley tonight, 21, 10, and 7. That's awesome. And Kevin talked about this a couple weeks ago, and it's something where I really love the point he made. Where Evan Mobley's maturation has taken him is that he has so many different ways he can beat you in a basketball game. It's not just guarding obviously the offensive stuff that you saw this year, but like, it's not just protecting the rim anymore. We've seen him have these games where he's shot the ball really well from three. We've seen these games where he is really kind of just like taken over and he's been really ferocious. But tonight he owned the paint. When he was in the paint, whether it was on offense or on defense, he was the most physical force there. And we've seen Evan Mobley in the past kind of have these games where if there's someone who's been bigger than him, he's kind of struggled. He did not struggle tonight with that whatsoever.
Yeah, he to go right along with like the series of moves. Like his confidence, we've talked about it, is just off the charts. Like he made and he's done this a lot, but there was one player in particular in the fourth quarter where he put the ball on the floor from outside the arc, like made like 3 different moves on Hartenstein, and then hit like a running floater that a 7 foot tall guy should not be able to make those moves and hit that shot. Yeah. And that is a shot or a play, I should say, he wouldn't have attempted or wouldn't have been able to pull off, I think, before this season. And it shows like his maturation. And like, I don't know, I don't think I've heard this anywhere else, but I think the closest comp to him is he's turning into Raptors Chris Bosh, and that is meant as a huge compliment. Like Raptors Chris Bosh that can shoot threes. Bosh didn't really shoot threes well until later in his career, right? Yeah. But just obviously the frame is about the same, and the height and everything, and
the jersey number.
Yeah. And I just like that's who I was like. I couldn't put my finger on the last few games. I'm like, who does he remind me of from like a while back and something? And that's who, and it's meant as a huge compliment. Chris Bosh was, I don't know, probably a 10-time All-Star or something. He's a Hall of Famer. Like that's a great guy to be compared to. And I think Evan Mobley is, I actually was curious. I looked up Chris Bosh's stats. It's funny, through like 3.5 seasons, the trajectory is about the same. Bosh was averaging a little bit more points by now, but like not as much as some of the other stuff that Mobley's doing. But just like the increase year over year was like very, very similar. And I don't know if anybody else has said that, but it's just a comparison. I think
I like it a lot.
Pretty good.
It's pretty accurate. Yeah. They said on the broadcast, they asked, Richard Jefferson and Doris, like, or Doris asked Richard Jefferson, like, how unlocked is Evan Mobley so far? And Richard Jefferson's like 60, 70%. There's still so much more to go. They even brought up the fact, I think maybe it was last year or the year before, where Giannis said, this guy is going to be better than me. Like,
yeah, if he puts the effort, he's going to be better than me. Yeah.
Yeah. And a huge compliment because Giannis is a former MVP. So.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll ever be as physical as Giannis in the fast break by any means, but I do trust him far more shooting threes and free throws. And that's not an insult at Giannis. That's just saying how highly I think of Evan Mobley. So, yeah, I mean, obviously those two, incredible. Darius Garland, another really fun game. Wasn't his best shooting night per se, but did all the right things. And Kevin, I got to bring you in the convo because it's now your guy again, 32. Another win when he's in the lineup.
Yeah.
Wade.
Yeah. He was really solid today. I mean, from the collection of bench guys that kind of rotates in around the big four, gives them a break or something, they got high level contributions. They had 7 guys in double figures in all. Dean Wade, I thought was great. Actually played a little bit less tonight because Max Strus had his best game of the year. Like actually, one of 3 notes I wrote down was 7 minutes in the second quarter. This is already Max Strus's best game of the year. Like, and he was not only the points, I mean, a 6 for 7 from the field with 5 threes. And he had 5 assists. He was all over the place. He drew a couple like offensive fouls on the defensive end. Like that was as good a Max Strus game as I can remember. Obviously, not just this year, like going back quite a ways. Like he was awesome tonight. And they get this kind of contribution from Max Strus. They just get so much deeper. It starts becoming like, how do you get all these guys on the floor? Because this is one of the first games this year. They're down Sam Merrill, but for the most part had everybody that would be in the rotation playing.
Skylar, are you sharing your screen?
Yep, because before we go into Strus, everybody's starting to take notice of the Dean Wade stats. Stat for our audio listeners, StatMuse on X posted the stat of Dean Wade this season: 26 wins, 1 loss, 17-1 as a starter.
Do you think they listen to us? Because I think I brought it up like 4 podcasts in a row.
You have. You have. Yeah. I heard you bring it up with Luca. I thought that was really good. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I probably just keep bringing it up until they lose a game because it just keeps account. No, I mean, because Dean, as great as Strus was, Ty Jerome was also very, very good tonight. Dean Wade just gives you a little bit additional element because of his size on the defensive end, helping rebound. Luca talked a lot about that and gave some great stats on the NBA Weekly podcast yesterday. And so I think, is it a little fluky to have that? Of course, but I also think he is the perfect role player to complement the big four, and that there's a little bit of truth into like their inflated record when he plays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without looking at the box score, guys, which Cav led this team in plus minus tonight?
Was it Isaac Okoro?
Isaac Okoro plus 12 with 0 points.
So I was going to bring him up because obviously it's his first game back. He played 13 minutes tonight. Didn't score, but the little time he was in affected the game so well. I mean, he's guarding Jalen Williams. He's, forcing turnovers. He has a steal. He forces the ball out of bounds to go off an OKC player. I can't remember exactly who it was at the time. But even though he didn't score and even though he played a short amount of time in his first game back from injury, his presence was definitely felt in this game.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just kind of the what we love and expect out of Isaac Okoro, is just being that junkyard dog, the most grit, affect the game without needing the counting stats.
Yeah. And I got a stat to kind of solidify what you're saying. Like Isaac Okoro, when he was in the 13 minutes he played, he was the closest defender on 8 shots from Jalen Williams and SGA combined, and they were 1 for 8. And this is in a game where they had 31 and 25 and both shots right around or above 50%. So like he held them to 1 for 8 shooting the time that he was in. And it just speaks to how even with all these other role guys, Okoro has a place on this team because his ability to guard, guys like SGA.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think is there anything else we need to touch on from this game? Because I feel like we could talk about it forever. There's just so many good things.
There's all kinds of stuff.
I know. Like I'm just like I'm running out of notes.
I reminded everyone yesterday we are still a TJ Maxx podcast, and he had 15 points on 6 for 7 shooting in less than 12 minutes played. Fantastic game by him, and his performances have been a little streakier than they were at the beginning of the season when it seemed like he was awesome every game. But this was a game he was huge, and especially he was huge, because Mitchell was so off tonight. He replaced
steals
he replaced a lot of the production that we usually get from Donovan Mitchell in the short amount of time he played. I thought he was fantastic. We didn't mention he only had 8 points, but Karis LeVert did hit 2 threes. So Tim hit his bet tonight.
I'm back, baby. I'm back.
and I think now that we've gone all the way back around, just one more time, Jarrett Allen was the star of this game. He's been the star of several games lately.
Yeah.
I think he's often thought of as number 4 of the big 4. But in some ways that's true. He's, has the least offensive ability, obviously, and everything. But when it comes to contributing to winning big games, like he's been doing it as much as just about anybody.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I think I have 2, maybe 3 topics to hit on. They pointed out in the broadcast, and we pointed it out before, about this being the number 1 defensive team in the league. On average, they're giving up 103 points. We had that at the end of the third quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, this Cavs team was putting it on them. And going along with that, I think maybe the league or ESPN or somebody nudged the officiating, because they let them play through quite a bit of contact on both sides
until the fourth quarter.
Until the fourth quarter, they got a little more ticky tack. But all in all, I mean, they let these guys play, and I think that's part of what made it feel like a playoff game, like they feel like a finals game, is that they let a lot of physicality happen.
And another thing I mentioned for the whole team, this was a game of like aggressively getting to the rim. I talked about from the Thunder, but from the Cavs too. Like the Thunder shot 31 threes tonight. They're like middle of the pack as far as 3 points attempt, but that's about 6 or 7 below their average. The Cavs only shot 36, and I think in December we did the math and they were shooting like 47 a game.
Yeah.
And they were doing it, obviously they're 12-1 in December. They're doing it highly effectively and everything. But this was the type of game, maybe because of OKC's, elite perimeter defenders, that it was a better game to pump fake and go to the rim than try and get off as many of those threes. I think that added to some of the excitement, because as beautiful it is to watch great 3-point shooting, it gets the adrenaline going more when it's guys, attacking the rim and a big guy trying to defend the paint against them. And then, and then there's a skirmish for an offensive rebound and everything. It was a game. It was very, for as high scoring as it was very physical, very, effort driven. And I thought it was a great mix of modern day NBA and a little bit old school NBA that some people are nostalgic for.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I want to make up 2 points too, real quick. Kind of piggybacking off something you each said to the show. So Skylar mentioned that the officials were really, really kind of lenient letting him play. And Kevin, you talked about Kenny Atkinson's interview.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite points from the game was when they actually called that offensive 3 seconds on Mobley in the fourth quarter. And Kenny Atkinson and Mobley are both laughing, and they're like, "You call it now? You haven't called it the whole game, and you call it now?" I thought that was so funny. That was really great. But those 2 for sure. You guys mentioned the bench. Obviously, a terrific night for them. Everyone kind of made their stamp this game. Even Niang. I know Niang didn't have his best shooting night, but still found a way to make his points and come across in the game. So just an awesome night. A great night for the NBA to put these smaller markets on notice of like, look, the game is fine. We're going to be okay. and stop talking to us about your BS thing, comparing us to the NFL. Like Kevin broke down a couple weeks ago, that's total crap. And we got really good basketball teams all around the country. So
we did. And the one other thing that these teams have in common, we were talking about it yesterday on the NBA Weekly, from the Cavs perspective, but OKC obviously has this. It might be the great inefficiency in the NBA is having great depth. If you have star players that maybe aren't on like max contracts yet, and you can actually have several bench guys that are above that $5-6 million range, or you just have guys on incredibly market-friendly deals. I mean, you look at OKC got pretty good contributions up and down from their 9-man rotation night, and that was without Alex Caruso, without Chet Holmgren. They are just them and the Cavs are. I almost think it's indisputable the two deepest teams in the NBA as far as collection of talent up and down the roster. And I'm almost wondering if this is going to be like the new inefficiency in the league, that how can we get stars on a little bit lower contracts so that we have money to like fill out the bench with a little bit higher caliber role players.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we talked about it with Luca from RealCavsFans.com yesterday. I think that's the way that the league is trending, to be much more like baseball, using a farm system to develop, using the G League as a farm system to develop guys so that you can kind of get them on the cheap, your arbitration years before they hit the market, and using that to be able to build a bench and develop players. One thing I want to, before we move on to the next game, this team needs to work on its free throws. I mean, they had 10 more attempts than the Thunder, and the Thunder are the number one free throw team in the league. But yet they still shot 74%. To me, that's unacceptable, because even if you hit 3 more free throws, you maintain your double-digit lead on every win in this win streak.
Yeah, and I just kind of finishing the point about the Thunder, we talked all through like the Cavs financials yesterday, so I won't regurgitate that because we are really more in the weeds than we normally do. But from the Thunder's perspective, they have Chet Holmgren, who's an offense. It didn't play tonight, obviously, but he's an all-star caliber player making less than $11 million. Jalen Williams is one of the better wings in the league. He's making less than $5 million this year. Yeah. And it's because they hit on stars, whether it's on rookie deals or below market deals. And then they had the money to go out and sign Isaiah Hartenstein and take him away from the Knicks because it could offer more money. It is the new great efficiency in the NBA where, we're not far removed from like, you need a big 3, right? Use all your salary cap to assign 3 stars. It seems like that doesn't work anymore. And this is the way to do it. Try and find a little bit more cost control, even with your stars, and be able to, use the money more up and down the roster.
Yeah. Real quick before we do move on. Do either of you remember, before Sydney answers it, because I know she'll get it before one of us does. Do either of you remember when the Cavs got Isaiah Hartenstein, who they traded for him? You'll laugh at this. It's so funny.
The Cavs? I don't.
Oh, it's coming to me. Is it Marquise Chris?
No, it was JaVale McGee. Yeah, it was JaVale. I thought, I was like, is that the Jordan Clarkson trade where they traded Clarkson to Utah? And it wasn't. But
no.
Every time Hartenstein's been traded, I feel like it's been really lopsided in the favor of the team who gets Hartenstein. When I looked at it, like when he was traded from Denver to the Knicks, even, it's like, what, it's not the Zubac for Mike Mustaka bad trade, but it's up there. And then real quick, even though it wasn't his best scoring night, even though he struggled, Donovan Mitchell still found a way to be a superstar when the game mattered most. And that was awesome and really, really cool, because we know he does not have 2 bad games in a row. So tomorrow when they play a lowly Raptors team, we know he's going to come out and he's going to bring it, which brings us to the preview for tomorrow night, where the Cavaliers will once again face the Toronto Raptors, who are currently on a 3-game losing streak after taking a nice belt to, as Skyler puts it, belt to ass game tonight from the New York Knicks, 112-98. They do have a win in January, but it was against the Brooklyn Nets. So I refer to the Raptors in that category of teams, guys, I like to call the capture the flag teams for the 2025 NBA draft. Truthfully, this is down in the weeds, and we'll get, and this is just a quick comment before we get into the game. This is the team I want to get Cooper Flag, because I think he would fit so well with this young talent, and he'd be so fun on this team. But that's for a story for later on down the road. But it's a team that look, they're 8-29 for a reason. They're not good. They have good players. I love RJ Barrett. They have Jakob Poeltl. Scotty Barnes is back. He's played pretty well. Emmanuel Quickly's played well, but they're still relying on the Garrett Temples and the Kelly Olynyk's and the Chris Bouchers and the Davion Mitchells, the Jacoby Waters, the Jahal Sheehades, who are good players, but not to the level of the Cavs. And Kevin, I'll bring you back to the conversation here simply just by stating this. The spread's already out, and the Cavs are 15.5-point favorites tomorrow.
I told everybody, and it's a bet I took tonight. I cleaned up tonight. Thank you, Cavs. Thank you, Tim, for your tips. Thank you, Jarrett Allen, especially.
Over me?
But when you want to talk about it, it's 15.5. Obviously, a money line you're going to make no money on or something.
Right.
But look at first half in game, either the money lines on both or a reduced rate on both. Cavs should kill them tomorrow, but it's tough giving 15-16 points to any NBA team.
For sure.
Because they could be up 25 in the fourth, pull everybody, and then win by 15. That's what happened a couple games ago against Charlotte. That ended up being a 10-point game, even though they're comfortably in control that whole game. So, yeah, I mean, tomorrow night, key is do what they've done all year. Stay focused, don't let tonight being just such a huge win just for your momentum and your confidence and everything. Don't let that distract you from winning the game tomorrow. And if they do that, should be moving on to 33-4.
Yeah.
Bell to ass is one of my new favorite sayings.
We're actually getting block shot stop shirts on the back say belt to ass.
I mean, if we want to talk about belt to ass, let's go through the last time the Cavs and Raptors met. 136-106 Cavs, 108-122 Cavs. Those are belt to ass wins. And
both
like
those
you
games,
said,
Mobley was incredible.
And Mobley was incredible, and like you said, Donovan Mitchell doesn't shoot bad 2 nights in a row. So I expect him to come out and show that tonight was just an off night. The matchup predictor on ESPN is 11% to 88.
Is there a 1% chance of a tie?
Yeah.
Well, 11.9. So we'll give it 12.
All right, I got it. Okay.
12% to 88. I think this is get through it, don't get hurt.
Yeah. No, and the Raptors have some very young, talented guys. Who knows how they'll pan out? But the combination of inexperience and needing time to develop, as well as just kind of finding the complementary parts of the roster, they have good individual talent. They're just not a good team right now. So. Yeah. And it's the NBA. On any night, if you fall asleep, RJ Barrett, you can look up and he has 35 and Quickly has 28, and you're losing in the fourth quarter. So the Cavs have done an incredible job. The thing that's impressed me the most is to not really fall asleep at any point or become unfocused for any game, no matter what they're coming from or what they have next. And I, at this point, would expect them to show up, give a great effort, and have a comfortable double-digit win tomorrow.
Yeah, I completely agree. But we will be back for that game like we are for after every Cavs game. So we are definitely appreciative of you guys hanging out with us tonight. What a fun night. A great win. My favorite, it's taking the place of my favorite one of the year, obviously. I think that's pretty simple. But we'll be back for this one. Then we get ready for 2 games with the Pacers. So we'll be having a lot of basketball talking about here in the next couple weeks, leading into the All-Star break. So we're going to go and wrap up tonight's edition of the Block, the Shot, the Stop. On behalf of Skylar Webker, on behalf of Kevin Lynch, I'm Tim Daniel. Thank you all again for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, your podcast app of choice. Please make sure you give us a nice solid 5-star review. And we will be back tomorrow. Take it easy, everyone.
Go Cavs.